Hi everyone, my name is Kelvar and this is going to be a continuation of my tracking the enemy jungler video. Today, we're going to be going over some basic decision making using the tracking skills I discussed in the last video. Since we will be covering topics used in that video in much greater detail, I highly suggest you go watch the last one. You can find a link in the description below. And much like my last video, I have a similar disclaimer. This video is not meant to blow your mind or make you a god tier jungler, but it will give you a basic understanding of factors that go into decision making and how you can get better at it. With that out of the way, let's get right into it. For the sake of this video, we'll be explaining it from the blue side perspective. As we discussed last time, tracking the enemy jungler is a core aspect of jungling, which allows you to dictate the pace of the game rather than have it dictated to you. Using offensive warding patterns, we are able to successfully track the enemy jungler's movements, but what do you do with this knowledge? Let's say that Lee Sin was spotted on the bot side jungle running toward his blue buff and bot lane at about 7.5 minutes, but he has a blue buff and no one on the map has a red buff. Aside from the fact that Lee Sin took a blue buff from a mid laner, there are a couple of different routes you could take depending upon your position. For example, if you're on the top side of the map, you could invade the enemy's jungle and counter jungle, taking his red buff in other camps depending upon how long it would take you to clear them. You could gank top lane completely free of the enemy jungler since he was seen bot side. Maybe get some offensive vision down on the top side of the map so you could continue to track him. Or, if you're on the bot side, you could easily go and prepare a counter gank, as Lee Sin is likely to be attempting a gank, especially if your bot laners are pushed up. What's more is, if your lane is pushed up, try sneaking into the lane brushes, as it's a great way to surprise the enemy team. Just be sure to try and read the enemies. Depending upon how they move could tell you that the lane brush is warded, but that's a topic for a whole nother video. Adding to this process of decision making, you also need to consider the enemy laners as well. Where are the enemy laners? Are they missing? Are they in lane? If they're missing, where did you last see them? Where did you see the jungler? Is the dragon up? Is Baron up? What are the towers' health like? Could you push down a tower? Could you invade? Jungling can be very disorienting from time to time, as there's lots of things to keep track of. However, when I go into a game, I pretty much make a tier list of what is most important depending upon the team in the game. A basic prioritization looks something like this. Inhibs over Baron or Elder Dragon, over Infernal, over Towers, over other dragons, over Heralds, over buff. This is not necessarily the case for all games, as it can vary from game to game. Let's try something new. If I give you an example, could you come up with 3 possible decisions that could be made and choose one of those decisions within 2 seconds of being given the example? Let's say at 15 minutes you see a Lee Sin near dragon in the river clearing your pink ward, and your bot side of the map at your raptors. What do you do? Some decisions that could be made might be contesting the pink ward, placing a ward on dragon to make sure the enemy is not setting up to take it, prepping a counter gank in either mid or bot depending upon if either is pushed up, or maybe, depending upon how the enemies are positioned, you could run top side and try to get some offensive vision in his top side of the jungle. Let's try a more difficult one. How about 20 minutes in the game, you spot the enemy jungler and bot lane on the dragon, but you're top side at your blue buff. You see all enemies on the map with top and mid in their lanes. What do? It's incredibly unlikely that you could make it to dragon in time, so you could either invade and counter jungle to top side, get some deep vision down, and go for a gank in either top or mid lane depending upon their position. Now I know what you're all thinking, gee Kelvar, I came to this to learn how to make decisions, not be asked what decisions I would make. What is this going to do for me? Well, I'm glad you asked. What's possibly even more important than the decision itself is actually making a decision. All of them should be made within 1 to 2 seconds of spotting the enemy jungler. One problem I had, and I see a lot of other junglers make, is being indecisive. Understanding decisions that can be made is important, but it's even more important to make a decision and stick to it. Being indecisive and running back and forth only wastes time, and while it's good to understand all decisions that can be made, if no decision is made, then no advantage was created and therefore the information is completely useless. It sounds a lot easier said than done, but forcing yourself into a decision is better than not making a decision at all. Now, this is not going to come instantly or easily. I still struggle with this myself, honestly. I very highly suggest just forcing yourself to make a choice. Regardless of whether or not it's right or wrong, or goes well or goes poorly, at least a decision was made. The more you force yourself to be in this position to make a choice, the better you become at reading all the variables and making the correct choice. Not to say that there is always a correct choice, as multiple choices could be right or wrong depending upon the variables, but you get my point. My best advice for improving your decision making is to take a look at a VOD and see what you might have overlooked, or what you could have done better. Self-reflection is something that can be a major eye-opener for some players and often helps them realize their flaws. Especially with the new league replay system, it makes it incredibly easy to see what you may have missed or what you could have done better. If you feel like you're continually making incorrect decisions, then ask a friend to take a look at a VOD, see if there's something you might have overlooked. Sometimes all it takes is a fresh pair of eyes to see something you might have missed. Or, if you don't trust a friend or have any, like me, then send me a VOD, I'd love to help. I've been thinking of starting a series where players send me a VOD and I analyze them to see what they could have done differently to help them. If you're interested in having a VOD reviewed, then you can send it to kelvarcasts@gmail.com with the title VOD Review and a timestamp of where you would want me to specifically look. I will then take the VOD and review it and then upload it to YouTube for your review. Aside from the point, jungling and decision making doesn't necessarily follow a linear path, which can make it difficult to fully grasp. There's really no cut and dry right way to make a decision. There are so many factors that come into play that it makes it near impossible to say with 100% certainty that this decision is the right one. Again, I very highly suggest rewatching VODs and asking others to watch them for you, as it's the best way to get varying opinions and ideas of what others may have done differently, which will only aid you in future games. Hopefully you understood the point of this video wasn't to give you the right and wrong way to make decisions, but rather cover how to get better at making them and some factors that apply. If you enjoyed, I would very much appreciate a like and subscribe so you could be alerted of when I upload new videos. And as always, I wish you all the best of luck in solo queue, and I hope to see you in the next video.